Chicago mornings are a crapshoot. Sometimes you get golden sun spilling over Lake Michigan. Sometimes you get a gray sky that decides to dump its entire load on you without warning. That Tuesday in April was the latter. Lena Harris was already running late, her arms wrapped around a teetering stack of presentation folders, her heels clicking against the wet pavement of the Loop. She'd overslept, blamed the cheap Cabernet she'd split with Tasha the night before, and now she was paying for it. No umbrella, no free hands, just a prayer that the rain wouldn't turn her pitch into a soggy mess before she hit the client's office on Wacker Drive. The wind didn't care about her prayers. One sharp gust ripped through the street, snatching her carefully organized papers and sending them spiraling across the sidewalk like confetti at a parade gone wrong. "No, no, no!" Lena yelped, dropping to her knees, her black pencil skirt soaking up the puddle beneath her. She lunged for a page, then another, cursing under her breath as the ink blurred into abstract art. Horns blared from the gridlocked traffic. A CTA bus roared past, splashing her with a fresh wave of dirty water. Perfect. Just perfect. That's when the rain above her stopped. Not everywhere, just above her. She froze, one hand clutching a dripping folder, and glanced up. A guy stood there, tall as hell, holding his suit jacket over her head like some makeshift tent. His white dress shirt was plastered to his chest, the rain turning it damn near see-through, and Lena couldn't help but notice the way it clung to broad shoulders and a frame that screamed gym membership. His hair, dark brown, maybe black, was dripping, sticking to his forehead, but his green eyes locked on hers with this weird mix of concern and amusement. "Let me help you," he said, kneeling beside her, totally unbothered by the water seeping into his tailored pants. His voice was low, smooth, like he was used to being heard. He reached for a page at the same time she did, their fingers brushing, and Lena felt a jolt, quick and hot, like static electricity on a winter day. She yanked her hand back, clutching the paper to her chest. "Thanks, but you're ruining your fancy suit," she said, eyeing him warily. That's when she clocked the watch on his wrist. A Patek Philippe, sleek and stupidly expensive. The kind of thing you don't wear unless you've got money to burn. Great. Some rich asshole playing hero. "It's just a suit," he replied, flashing a smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes. "You're the one with the real emergency here." He grabbed another page before it floated into a storm drain, handing it to her with a little nod. "Yeah, well, not all of us can afford to trash designer threads," she shot back, tucking the soggy mess under her arm. She stood up, brushing wet hair out of her face, and he followed, still holding that jacket over her like she was some damsel in a rom-com. Up close, he was even taller, 6'2", maybe 6'3", and smelled like cedar wood and something expensive she couldn't place. The rain pounded his shoulders, but he didn't flinch, just kept those eyes on her. "You're gonna catch pneumonia standing there like that," she said, half annoyed, half impressed. "I've got this, okay?" "You sure? Looks like you're fighting a losing battle." He nodded at the pile in her arms, one corner already disintegrating into mush. "Where you headed?" "Client meeting. 3 blocks that way." She jerked her chin toward the towering glass building in the distance, barely visible through the downpour. "I'll live." "Let me buy you a coffee first," he said, stepping closer to keep the jacket shielding her. "You look like you could use a minute to dry off before you walk in there looking like you just swam the Chicago River." Lena snorted, shifting her weight. "Yeah, 'cause I've got time to sip a latte with a stranger while my career drowns." She squinted at him, trying to figure his angle. Guys like him, polished, confident, probably born with a trust fund, didn't stop for women like her. She was a 32-year-old marketing exec from Logan Square, a black woman who'd clawed her way up from nothing, not some model he'd hit on at a rooftop bar. "No latte, then. Black coffee, 2 sugars. Fast. There's a spot right across the street. He tilted his head toward a little diner, the neon open sign flickering through the rain. "Come on, you're shivering." She was shivering, damn it. Her blouse stuck to her skin, cold and clammy, and her teeth were starting to chatter. She glanced at her watch. 15 minutes until the meeting. She could sprint and show up looking like a drowned rat or take 5 minutes to regroup. "Fine," she said finally, crossing her arms. "But this isn't a date, rich boy." His grin widened, rain dripping from his hair onto his collar. "Wouldn't dream of it. Just a public service." He offered his hand, like they were sealing a deal. Cole Brennan. She hesitated, then shook it, her fingers small against his calloused palm. Lena Harris. His grip was firm, warm despite the chill, and she pulled back quick, ignoring the little flip in her stomach. They darted across the street, Cole still holding that jacket over her like a human umbrella, his long strides matching her hurried ones. Inside the diner, the air smelled like burnt coffee and greasy hash browns, the kind of place where the waitresses called you hon and the jukebox hadn't been updated since the 90s. Lena slid into a booth, dropping her wrecked folders on the table, while Cole waved over a server like he owned the joint. "2 coffees, black, 2 sugars, he said, then glanced at Lena. "That work?" "Make it 3 sugars, she corrected, wringing out the hem of her skirt under the table. "I need the boost." 3 it is. He slid into the seat across from her, shaking water from his hair like a damn puppy. His shirt was a lost cause now, outlining every muscle, and Lena forced her eyes up to his face. No point in staring. She wasn't here to ogle. "So, Cole Brennan," she said, leaning back as the server plunked down 2 chipped mugs. "What's a guy like you doing out in this mess? No driver to whisk you away in a Benz?" He laughed, a low rumble that made the diner feel smaller. "No driver today. I was walking to a meeting, same as you, I guess. Saw you losing your shit and figured I'd play Good Samaritan." "Losing my shit?" She arched a brow, sipping the coffee. It was bitter as hell, but the heat felt good going down. That's one way to put it. Accurate, though. He smirked, wrapping his hands around his mug. "What's in the folders? Big pitch?" "Something like that." She glanced at the mess of papers, her stomach twisting. Months of work, half ruined. Marketing campaign for a tech startup. If I nail it, maybe I finally get that corner office. If I don't... She shrugged, letting the sentence hang. "You'll nail it," he said, like it was a fact. "You've got that vibe, someone who doesn't quit." She studied him, trying to read the play. Was he flirting? Sucking up? Just bored? "You don't even know me." "I know you didn't let a little rain stop you." He leaned forward, elbows on the table, and damn if those eyes didn't pull her in. "That's more than most people around here." Lena opened her mouth to argue, but her phone buzzed. 10 minutes to go. "Shit, I gotta bounce." She stood, gathering her soggy stack, the coffee barely touched. "Thanks for the save. And the caffeine." "Anytime." He pulled a pen from his pocket, because of course he carried a fancy-ass Mont Blanc, and scribbled something on a napkin, sliding it over. "In case you need another rescue, or just a decent cup of coffee." She stared at the number, then at him. "You're smooth, I'll give you that." "Practice," he said with a wink, standing too. "Good luck, Lena Harris." She tucked the napkin into her bag, already halfway to the door. "Yeah, you too, rich boy." Outside, the rain had slowed to a drizzle, and she broke into a jog, her mind spinning. Cole Brennan, whoever he was, had just turned her disaster of a morning into something else. Something she couldn't quite name. Back at the diner, Cole watched her go, the ghost of her sarcasm still hanging in the air. He didn't know why he'd stopped. Maybe it was the way she'd cursed at the wind like it owed her money, or the fire in her eyes when she'd sized him up. Either way, he hoped she'd call. Because because for the first time in a long time, he felt like he'd met someone real. "Hey, you made it through the rain with Lena and Cole. Want to know if she's right to trust this mystery guy, or if he's just another smooth-talking player? Hit that subscribe button and drop a comment with your guess. I'll spill more next time." Lena Harris didn't call Cole Brennan right away. That napkin with his number sat in her bag for 3 days, crumpled next to a half-empty pack of gum and a stray earring she'd meant to fix. She'd nailed the pitch, soggy folders and all, and landed the tech startup account. But her mind kept drifting back to that rain-soaked stranger with the green eyes and the cocky smile. By Friday, curiosity got the better of her. One text, "Coffee didn't suck. You free tonight?" And here she was, stepping into a Gold Coast bar that screamed money in a way her Logan Square haunts never did. The place was all dim lights and polished wood, the kind of spot where the cocktails cost more than her electric bill. Jazz hummed from a live trio in the corner, and the air smelled like leather and top-shelf bourbon. Lena smoothed her little black dress, nothing fancy, just H&M clearance rack chic, and scanned the room. Cole was already there, leaning against the bar in a navy blazer and jeans, looking like he'd walked out of a GQ shoot. He spotted her, waved her over with that same easy grin, and she felt her stomach do a little flip she immediately hated herself for. "Hey, you made it," he said, sliding a martini her way as she reached him. "Figured you'd earned something stronger than diner coffee." "Only if it comes with a side of fries," she shot back, taking the glass. The first sip hit sharp and cold, gin cutting through the week's exhaustion. "This place is a lot." "Yeah, it's pretentious as hell," he admitted, sipping his own drink, something amber, probably whiskey. "But the music's good, and they don't water down the booze." "You like jazz?" "Grew up on it. My mom's got every Ella Fitzgerald vinyl known to man." She leaned against the bar, studying him. Up close, without the rain as a filter, he was sharper, cheekbones that could cut glass, a shadow of stubble along his jaw. "You don't strike me as a jazz guy." "More of a Springsteen fan," he said, laughing. "But I adapt." "What's your vibe? Beyoncé? Kendrick?" "Both, plus some old-school Outkast when I'm feeling nostalgic." She smirked. "Let me guess. You're one of those white guys who thinks Sweet Home Alabama is deep." "Ouch." He clutched his chest, mock wounded. "Give me some credit. I've got Ms. Jackson on my playlist." "All right, I'll let it slide." She took another sip, the gin loosening her edges. "So, Cole Brennan, what's your deal? You some tech bro? Finance dude? I'm betting you've got an office with a view and a corner bar." He grinned, leaning closer, his elbow brushing hers. "Close. I invest in startups, find the next big thing, throw money at it, hope it doesn't tank. Office is up on Michigan Avenue, but the view's mostly smog and pigeons." "Poor you," she teased, rolling her eyes. "Must be rough, counting your millions while the rest of us fight for scraps." "Didn't start with millions," he said, his tone shifting, quieter. "Grew up in a nowhere town downstate. Dad fixed tractors. Mom worked at a diner. Built my first company in a garage with a busted laptop and a lot of Red Bull. Sold it at 25, got lucky." Lena tilted her head, reassessing. "Okay, that's not what I expected. Thought you were born with a silver spoon." "Nope. Just a kid who didn't want to end up like his old man, broke and bitter." He shrugged, swirling his drink. "What about you? How'd you get into marketing?" "Long story," she said, then paused. Maybe it was the gin or the way he was actually listening, but she kept going. "Grew up in Englewood, South Side, rough as hell. Single mom, little sister, me working 3 jobs to get through UIC. Landed this gig 5 years ago, been hustling ever since." "Damn," he said, eyes widening. "That's not hustle, that's grit. Makes my garage story sound like a cakewalk. Don't get it twisted. I'm still clawing my way up. She set her glass down, the buzz humming in her veins. You don't get to 32 as a black woman in this game without some scars. He nodded like he got it, or at least wanted to. You're tougher than you look, Lena Harris. And you're smoother than you look, Cole Brennan. She smirked, but there was heat behind it now, a pull she couldn't ignore. The band kicked into a slower number, all sultry sax and lazy drums, and Cole straightened up. Dance with me. What? She laughed, caught off guard. Here? Yeah, here. He held out a hand, daring her. Unless you're scared. Please. She slid off the stool, taking his hand, her pulse kicking up. I'm not scared of you. They moved to the small dance floor, a handful of couples already swaying. His hand settled on her waist, warm through the thin fabric of her dress, and she looped her arms around his neck, their bodies close enough to feel the heat radiating off each other. He smelled like whiskey and that cedarwood cologne, and damn if it didn't mess with her head. The music wrapped around them, slow and heavy, and Lena felt herself relax into it, her hips moving with his like they'd done this 100 times. You're good at this, he murmured, his breath brushing her ear. Years of basement parties, she said, tilting her head to meet his gaze. Those green eyes were darker now, locked on hers, and her stomach flipped again, harder this time. You're not bad yourself. Practice, he echoed from earlier, his lips twitching. His hand slid lower, just above the curve of her hip, and she didn't pull away. The air between them thickened, charged, like the moment before a storm breaks. They danced through 2 more songs, the world shrinking to just them, the brush of his fingers, the press of her chest against his, the way his breath hitched when she leaned in closer. By the time the band paused, her skin was buzzing, and not just from the gin. He led her to a quieter corner near the bar, a shadowed nook where the light barely reached. Still not a date, huh? He asked, voice low, teasing. Nope, she said, but her eyes flicked to his mouth, and she knew she was lying to herself. Just a vibe. Good vibe, he agreed, stepping closer. The wall pressed against her back, cool and solid, and he braced one hand above her head, the other still on her waist. Lena. Yeah? Her voice came out softer than she meant, her heart pounding. He didn't answer with words. He leaned in, slow enough for her to stop him, but she didn't. His lips met hers, firm and warm, tasting like whiskey and something sweeter. And Lena's hands fisted in his blazer as she kissed him back. Hard. The world tilted, heat pooling low in her belly as his tongue brushed hers, tentative at first, then hungry. Her fingers slid up to his neck, tangling in his hair, and he groaned into her mouth, pressing her tighter against the wall. His hand slipped under the hem of her dress, just an inch, grazing her thigh, and she gasped, the sound swallowed by the kiss. Then reality hit. She pulled back, breathless, her lips tingling. Whoa, wait, she said, flattening her hands against his chest. I don't do this with guys like you. Guys like me? He was breathing hard, too, his forehead resting against hers, eyes half-lidded. Rich, smooth, trouble. She pushed him back a step, trying to clear her head. This isn't me. Maybe it could be, he said, voice rough. Give me a chance to prove I'm not just some asshole. She stared at him, chest heaving, the taste of him still on her lips. Maybe, she said finally, stepping out of his reach. But not tonight. He nodded, hands in his pockets, watching her grab her bag. Text me when you're home safe? Yeah. She flashed a shaky smile, then bolted for the door, the cool night air hitting her like a slap. Back in her apartment, she flopped onto her bed, staring at the ceiling, the memory of that kiss burning through her. What the hell was she doing? Across town, Cole stood at his penthouse window, the city lights blurring below. He could still feel her heat, her fire, and knew he was in deep, deeper than he'd been in years. Lena Harris didn't know what she'd expected from dating Cole Brennan, but it sure as hell wasn't this. A whirlwind of late-night texts, impromptu dinners, and a man who seemed to genuinely give a damn. 2 weeks after that kiss in the bar, she was hooked, even if she wouldn't admit it out loud. He'd show up at her Logan Square apartment with takeout from Lou Malnati's, sprawled on her thrift store couch like it was his penthouse, asking about her day while she ranted about her boss. It was easy, too easy, and that scared her. Guys like him didn't stick around, not with women like her, right? Tonight was different. Cole had talked her into a charity gala at the Art Institute, some swanky event with a black-tie dress code and a cause she couldn't pronounce. Lena stood in front of her cracked bedroom mirror, tugging at the borrowed emerald green gown Tasha had insisted she wear. "You're hot as hell," Tasha had said, tossing her a pair of hoops to match. "Own it." Lena wasn't so sure. She felt like an imposter, a South Side kid playing dress-up in a world that wasn't hers. Cole picked her up in a sleek black Audi, his tux fitting like it was sewn onto him. "You look incredible," he said, opening the passenger door, his eyes lingering in a way that made her cheeks burn. "Save it," she muttered, sliding in, though a smile tugged at her lips. "Let's just get this over with." The gala was a sea of glittering gowns and tailored suits, the kind of crowd that sipped champagne like it was water and dropped $1,000 bids on silent auction crap nobody needed. Lena clung to Cole's arm, her heels clicking against the marble floor, the weight of 100 eyes prickling her skin. She straightened her shoulders, refusing to shrink, but the whispers followed, some curious, some cutting. "Who's she? Brennan's new fling? Bet she's after his wallet." Miles, Cole's lawyer buddy from college, found them near the bar. He was all slick hair and sharper teeth, a shark in a three-piece suit. "Well, well," he said, clapping Cole on the shoulder, his grin too wide. "You clean up nice, man. And you—" He turned to Lena, eyes raking over her. "Didn't catch your name." "Lena Harris," she said, keeping her voice steady, her grip tightening on her glass of Pinot. "Lena," he repeated, like he was tasting it. "You're the one keeping our boy out of trouble, huh? Quite the upgrade from his usual type." Cole stiffened beside her, but Lena beat him to it. "What's that supposed to mean?" Miles laughed, tossing back his drink. "Oh, you know, Cole's got a pattern. Smart, pretty, temporary. You're the flavor of the month, sweetheart." "Say that again," she snapped, stepping forward, her pulse pounding. "I dare you." "Easy, Miles," Cole cut in, his hand on her arm, voice low and tight. "She's not some fling. Back off." Miles raised his hands, smirking. "Just messing around, man. She's feisty. Good for you." He winked at Lena, then sauntered off into the crowd, leaving a sour taste in her mouth. "You okay?" Cole asked, turning to her, his jaw tight. "No," she said, pulling her arm free. "Your friend's an asshole, and I'm not here to be your flavor of the month." "He's drunk and jealous," Cole said, running a hand through his hair. "Ignore him. I don't see you like that. And then why does it feel like everyone else does?" She gestured at the room, the stares still lingering. "I don't belong here, Cole. And they know it." "You belong with me," he said, stepping closer. But she shook her head and walked out, the cool night air hitting her like a lifeline. She didn't stop until she was on the museum steps, the city lights blurring through a haze of frustration. Sunday rolled around, and Lena thought she'd dodged more drama. Wrong. Jada, her little sister, had insisted on a family dinner at their mom's place in Englewood, a low brick house with peeling paint and a front porch sagging under years of love. Cole had begged to come, claiming he wanted to meet the crew, and Lena caved. "They're gonna eat you alive," she warned, half joking, as they pulled up in her beat-up Corolla. She'd refused his Audi this time. Inside, the air smelled like fried chicken and cornbread, the good kind of chaos filling the cramped living room. Mom was fussing over the stove, Jada was arguing with her boyfriend Darnell over the TV remote, and Uncle Ray was already 3 beers deep, muttering about the Bears. Cole walked in with a bottle of wine, some fancy Cabernet Lena knew her mom wouldn't touch, and a nervous smile that almost made her laugh. "Ma, this is Cole," Lena said, nudging him forward. "Cole, that's my mom, Ruth." "Pleasure, ma'am," Cole said, offering the bottle. "Heard you make the best sweet potato pie in Chicago." Ruth eyed him, then the wine, her lips pursing. "Flattery won't get you far, but I'll take it. Sit down, you're too tall for my kitchen." Dinner started fine. Cole complimented the food, asked Jada about her art, even got Uncle Ray talking about his old mechanic days. Then Darnell, a wiry guy with a chip on his shoulder, decided to stir the pot. He leaned back, smirking at Cole across the table. "So what's this rich prick doing here slumming it? You lost a bet or something?" "Darnell," Jada hissed, smacking his arm, but he ignored her. "I'm here for Lena," Cole said, his voice calm but edged. "Not your bullshit." "Watch your mouth at my table," Ruth snapped, pointing a spoon at Darnell. "And you," she turned to Cole, "you got manners, but you're still on probation." "Yes, ma'am," Cole said, flashing a grin that didn't quite reach his eyes. Lena stayed quiet, her stomach knotting. Darnell kept pushing, little jabs about Cole's white boy money and fancy car, until Jada dragged him outside, yelling loud enough for the neighbors to hear. The room went tense, forks scraping plates, Uncle Ray mumbling something about "damn kids." Cole reached for Lena's hand under the table, but she pulled away, staring at her plate. After dessert, Cole bravely tried the pie and swore it was better than anything uptown. Lena walked him to the porch. The streetlights buzzed, a light rain starting to fall, and she crossed her arms, avoiding his gaze. "This isn't working," she said finally. "What?" He turned, rain streaking his face. "Lena, come on. Your world, mine. They don't mix." She gestured back at the house, then out at the night. "Miles thinks I'm a gold digger. Darnell thinks you're slumming it. Maybe they're both right." "They're both wrong," he said, stepping closer, his voice rough. "I don't care what they think. I care about you." "Then why does it feel like I'm fighting to fit in everywhere?" She met his eyes, her throat tight. "Your Gala, my family. It's all a mess." "Lena," he reached for her, but she shook her head, stepping back. "I need space," she said, turning toward the door. "Good night, Cole." He stood there, hands in his pockets, rain soaking through his shirt as she disappeared inside. The door clicked shut, and he cursed under his breath, the weight of her words sinking in. Back in the house, Lena leaned against the wall, listening to the drizzle outside, wondering if she'd just torched the best thing she'd had in years. Across town, Cole climbed into his car, the engine rumbling to life. He didn't drive home. He just sat there, staring at the windshield, the rain blurring everything. He'd screwed up, not with Miles or Darnell, but with her, and he didn't know how to fix it. 2 weeks after that rainy night on her mom's porch, Lena Harris was done with feeling sorry for herself. She'd thrown herself into work. Late nights at the office, endless revisions to the startup campaign, anything to keep Cole Brennan's green eyes and whiskey voice out of her head. Her Logan Square apartment felt too quiet now, the couch still holding the ghost of his sprawl, the takeout containers long gone, but the memory lingering. She didn't text him. He didn't call, and that was fine, she told herself, sipping lukewarm coffee at her desk, the Chicago skyline a gray smear outside her window. Fine. Jada, though, wouldn't let it go. Her little sister had been blowing up her phone all week, cryptic texts about big news and you owe me a drink. Lena finally caved, meeting her at a dive bar in Wicker Park, a sticky-floored joint with a jukebox blaring Nirvana and a bartender who looked like he'd seen too many fights. Jada was already there, perched on a stool, her braids pulled into a messy bun, a grin splitting her face. "You look like you won the lottery," Lena said, sliding in beside her, waving for a beer. "What's up?" "Better than that," Jada said, practically bouncing. "I dumped Darnell's sorry ass. For good this time." Lena's eyebrows shot up. "No shit. What finally did it?" "Found him texting some chick from his job, threw his Xbox out the window and told him to kick rocks." Jada laughed, sipping her rum and coke. "But that's not the best part. I got a new studio space, cheap rent, big windows, perfect for painting. Signed the lease yesterday." "Damn, Jada, that's huge." Lena clinked her bottle against Jada's glass, a real smile breaking through for the first time in days. "How'd you swing that?" Jada's grin faltered, just for a second. Funny story. Your boy Cole hooked me up." Lena froze, the beer halfway to her lips. "What?" "Yeah." Jada leaned in, lowering her voice. "He tracked me down last week. Don't ask how, dude's got resources. Said he knew a guy with a vacant spot in Pilsen, made a call, covered the first 3 months' rent. Told me not to tell you, but I ain't good at secrets." Lena set the bottle down hard, the clink echoing. "He did what?" "Don't be mad." Jada held up her hands. "He wasn't flexing or nothing. Just said he wanted to help because he knows how much art means to me." "And, how much I mean to you?" Lena's mind spun. Cole, Mr. Gold Coast, Mr. I don't belong here, had gone behind her back to help her sister. No grand gesture, no spotlight, just this. She grabbed her phone, her thumb hovering over his name. "I need to see him." "Thought you might," Jada said, smirking. "Go yell at him or kiss him or whatever. Just don't screw this up again." An hour later, Lena stood outside Cole's penthouse in the Gold Coast, the doorman waving her up like she was expected. The elevator ride felt endless, her heart hammering against her ribs, her leather jacket still damp from the drizzle outside. She hadn't called ahead, didn't trust herself not to back out. When the doors slid open, Cole was there, barefoot in jeans and a faded Blackhawks tee, a glass of scotch in his hand. The floor-to-ceiling windows framed the city behind him. Lake Michigan, a dark shimmer under the clouds. "Lena?" He blinked, setting the glass down, his voice rough with surprise. "What are you—" "Why didn't you tell me about Jada?" She cut in, stepping out, her boots loud against the hardwood. He ran a hand through his hair, caught off guard. "She told you?" "Yeah, she told me." She crossed her arms, her pulse racing. "You paid for her studio. Why?" "Because she needed it," he said simply, stepping closer. "And I could do it. Didn't think you'd want to hear from me after everything." "You don't get to decide that," she snapped, but her voice cracked, betraying her. "You can't just swoop in and play hero without saying a word." "I wasn't trying to play anything." He moved toward her, stopping a foot away, his eyes searching hers. "I fucked up, Lena. That night at your mom's, the Gala, I should have handled it better. I didn't want you to think I was buying my way back in." "Then why do it?" She held his gaze, rain streaking the windows behind him, the sound filling the silence. Because I care about you, he said, his voice low, raw. And Jada's your family. I'd do it again, even if you hate me for it. She stared at him, the anger melting into something messier. Confusion, longing, a spark she couldn't snuff out. You're impossible, she muttered, stepping closer, close enough to smell the scotch on his breath, the cedarwood on his skin. And you're everything, he said, his hand lifting to her cheek, hesitant, like he was afraid she'd bolt. She didn't. She grabbed his shirt, pulled him down and kissed him, hard, desperate, all the pent-up frustration of the last 2 weeks pouring out. He groaned, his arms wrapping around her, lifting her against him as the kiss deepened, tongues clashing, heat exploding between them. Her jacket hit the floor, his hands sliding under her sweater, warm against her back, and she gasped into his mouth, her fingers digging into his shoulders. They stumbled toward the couch, a tangle of limbs and need, the city lights flickering outside. She pushed him down, straddling his lap, her hands framing his face as she kissed him again, slower this time, savoring the way he tasted, like regret and redemption. His fingers traced her spine, slipping lower, and she arched into him, the tension snapping like a live wire. Clothes stayed on, barely, but the air was thick with want, their breaths ragged, the rain drumming a frantic beat against the glass. God, I missed you, he murmured against her neck, his lips brushing her pulse, sending shivers down her spine. Shut up, she said. But there was no bite in it, just a shaky laugh as she pulled back, her forehead resting against his. This doesn't mean we're good. Fair. He smiled, that crinkle-eyed grin she couldn't resist, his hands settling on her hips. But we're something, right? Maybe, she said, climbing off him, her legs wobbly as she grabbed her jacket. I need to think, and you need to stop being so damn noble behind my back. Deal, he said, standing, still catching his breath. Text me when you're home? Yeah. She headed for the elevator, glancing back at him, disheveled, hopeful, hers in a way she hadn't let herself admit. The doors closed, and she leaned against the wall, her lips still tingling, her mind a mess of what-ifs. Back in the penthouse, Cole sank onto the couch, running a hand over his face. The taste of her lingered, the feel of her burned into him, and he knew he'd fight like hell to keep this, whatever it was. He grabbed his phone, pulled up Jada's number, and typed, "Thanks for ratting me out. Owe you one." Across town, Lena walked into her apartment, the rain still tapping at her windows. She flopped onto her bed, staring at the ceiling, the memory of his hands, his mouth, replaying on a loop. They weren't fixed, not yet, but they weren't broken either. And for the first time in weeks, that felt like enough. 3 months after that rainy night in Cole's penthouse, Lena Harris was starting to believe in second chances. She and Cole had settled into something real. Weekend brunches at her place with Jada crashing for free food, late-night drives along Lake Shore with the windows down, even a couple of awkward double dates with Tasha and her latest fling. He'd leave his phone on silent when they were together, showing up with coffee or a dumb joke just when she needed it. It wasn't perfect. His world still felt like a foreign country sometimes, but it was theirs, and that mattered. Then the cracks started showing. It began with a tabloid headline. Some sleazy gossip rag called Chi-Town Buzz ran a blurry photo of them at a rooftop bar captioned, "Billionaire Brennan's latest arm candy, gold digger or good luck." Lena laughed it off at first, tossing the link Tasha sent her into the trash folder. Let 'em talk, she told Cole over pizza that night, his arm slung around her on her couch. They don't know us. But they did talk, a lot. The story spread like wildfire, Twitter threads dissecting her LinkedIn, Instagram comments calling her a hustler in heels. Even a coworker whispering in the break room about how she snagged him. Cole's PR guy wanted to manage it, but Lena shut that down fast. "I'm not some scandal you need to spin," she'd snapped, and he'd backed off, promising to let it die out. It didn't die out, didn't die. A week later, Cole's parents flew in from their estate in Lake Forest. Old money types with stiff smiles and sharper edges. They invited Lena to dinner at their Gold Coast condo, a sterile box of white walls and modern art that screamed wealth. She wore her best blazer and slacks, her stomach in knots as Cole squeezed her hand under the table. His mom, Eleanor, a wiry woman with pearls and a pinched mouth, barely touched her salmon before cutting to the chase. "We're concerned, Cole," she said, her voice clipped like she was addressing a boardroom. "This relationship, it's distracting you. Your father and I have seen the papers." "It's noise, Mom," Cole said, his jaw tight. "Lena's not a distraction. She's the best thing in my life." "Is she?" His dad, Richard, a barrel-chested man with a Rolex and a scowl, leaned forward. "She's charming, I'll give her that. But people talk, son. They think she's after your money. It's a liability. For you, for the family." Lena's fork clattered against her plate, her face burning. "Excuse me." "No offense, dear," Eleanor said, not looking at her. "But you're from a different background. These things rarely work out." "Enough," Cole snapped, standing, his chair scraping the floor. "We're done here." Lena followed him out, her hands shaking, the city lights blurring as they drove back in silence. "They're wrong," he said finally, pulling over near the lake, his voice rough. "I don't give a damn what they think." "But I do," she said, staring out the window, the water black and endless. "Because they're not wrong about how it looks, and I hate that." He reached for her, but she pulled away, the weight of it all pressing down. Miles, Darnell, the headlines, now this. She wanted to believe in them, but the world wouldn't let her. The real blow came on her birthday. October in Chicago was crisp, leaves crunching underfoot, and Lena had planned a quiet night. Dinner at her favorite soul food spot in Bronzeville, just her and Cole, maybe a slice of cake after. She'd texted him the details a week ago, grinning when he'd promised to clear his schedule. "No work, no bullshit," he'd said, kissing her forehead. "Just us." She waited at the restaurant, a corner booth with a flickering candle, her phone silent. 6:30 became 7, then 7:15. She ordered a glass of wine, then another, her texts unanswered. "You on your way?" "Cole, where you at?" By 8, the waiter's pitying smile was unbearable, and she paid the tab, her chest tight with a mix of anger and hurt. Back home, she kicked off her boots, the apartment dark except for the glow of her phone. A message finally popped up at 8:47. "Emergency meeting with investors, lost track of time. I'm so sorry, babe. I'll make it up to you." She stared at it, tears stinging her eyes, then called him, her voice shaking when he picked up. "It's my birthday, Cole." I know, he said, frantic background noise of a bustling office. "I fucked up. We'll celebrate this weekend, I swear." "Like you made up missing my presentation last month?" She cut in, her voice rising. "Or when you bailed on Jada's art show for some conference call?" "Lena, No." She gripped the phone, tears spilling now. "This is who you are, isn't it? Work first, me second. Always." "That's not true," he said, desperate. "You're everything to me." "Then why am I alone right now?" Silence stretched, heavy and suffocating. "I can't do this," she whispered, hanging up, the phone slipping from her hand. She lit a single candle on a stale cupcake from the fridge, the flame flickering as she sat on the floor, her back against the couch. 33 years old, successful, single again. She blew it out, the smoke curling up, and let the tears come. She wasn't his charity case, his project, his fling. She was Lena Harris, and she deserved more. The next morning, she met him at his penthouse. He opened the door, still in yesterday's shirt, eyes red like he hadn't slept. "Lena, please," he started, but she held up a hand, stepping inside. "I'm done," she said, her voice steady despite the ache. She pulled the silver necklace he'd given her, a delicate chain with a tiny emerald, out of her pocket, setting it on the counter. "I can't keep pretending I fit in your world, Cole. I'm not built for this." "You do fit," he said, his voice breaking, reaching for her. "I'll fix it. Less work, more time, whatever you need." "It's not about time." She stepped back, her throat tight. "It's about who we are. You're the guy who misses birthdays for meetings. I'm the girl who can't stop fighting to prove I'm enough. We're kidding ourselves." "Lena, don't—" He grabbed her wrist, gentle but firm, his eyes pleading. "I love you." She froze, the words hitting like a punch. He'd never said it before, and now it felt like a lifeline thrown too late. "I love you too," she said, tears spilling again. "But it's not enough." She pulled free, walking out, the elevator doors closing on his broken expression. That night she curled up in bed, the silence deafening, the necklace's absence a cold weight on her chest. Across town, Cole stood on his terrace, the city sprawling below, a bottle of scotch in his hand. He'd lost her, not to Miles, not to his parents, but to himself. And it hurt like hell. 2 hours later, he was outside her building, rain pouring down, his shirt soaked through. "Lena!" he shouted, his voice raw, echoing off the brick. "Lena, please!" She heard him from her window, her heart twisting. But she didn't move. The rain drowned him out, and eventually he stopped, slumping against the wall, defeated. She watched him go, a shadow in the storm, and wondered if she'd just made the biggest mistake of her life. A month after that rainy night outside her building, Lena Harris was surviving. Not thriving, not yet, but surviving. She'd thrown herself back into work, her startup campaign winning her a promotion, senior exec, corner office, the whole deal. Her Logan Square apartment was her fortress again, filled with takeout boxes and playlists heavy on Jill Scott and Lauryn Hill. She didn't talk about Cole, didn't check his Instagram, didn't let herself wonder if he was still shouting her name into the rain somewhere. Jada and Tasha tiptoed around it, dropping hints about moving on. But Lena wasn't ready, not when every quiet moment still tasted like him. Jada's first solo art show changed that. It was a crisp November evening, the Pilsen studio buzzing with hipsters in beanies and old folks from the neighborhood clutching plastic cups of cheap wine. Lena showed up in a leather jacket and jeans, her hair in a high puff, determined to be there for her sister. The space was alive, canvases splashed with bold colors, jazz drifting from a portable speaker, the air thick with paint and possibility. Jada flitted around, glowing her latest piece, a swirl of reds and blues called Rain Dance, drawing a crowd. Lena was sipping a lukewarm rosé, chatting with Tasha near a sculpture made of old CTA tokens, when she saw him. Cole. He was across the room, sleeves rolled up on a flannel shirt, hammering a loose nail into a display frame. Paint streaked his forearms, his hair a mess, no trace of the polished billionaire she'd met in the rain. He laughed at something an old guy in a bull's cap said, his hands dirty, his grin real. Lena's breath caught, her cup nearly slipping. "What the hell?" she muttered, grabbing Tasha's arm. "Did you know about this?" Tasha smirked, sipping her beer. "Nope, but I'm not surprised. Jada's been singing his praises all week. Cole this, Cole that. Guess he's been here every day, setting up." Every day? Lena's eyes narrowed, tracking him as he handed a kid a paintbrush, showing her how to mix colors on a spare canvas. No cameras, no checkbook, just him, elbow deep in her sister's dream. Jada swooped in then, grabbing Lena's hand. "Come on, you gotta see this!" She dragged her to a corner where a small painting hung, a figure in a green dress under a storm cloud, holding a soggy stack of papers. "It's you," Jada said, grinning. "From that day you met him. Cole helped me finish it." Lena stared, her throat tight. "He told you about that?" "Yeah. Said it's when he knew you were different." Jada squeezed her arm. "He's not terrible, Lena. Give him that." Before she could argue, Cole spotted her. He froze mid-hammer, then set it down, wiping his hands on his jeans as he walked over. The crowd parted, eyes darting between them, but he didn't flinch. "Hey," he said, his voice soft, rough around the edges. "Didn't know you'd be here." "Bullshit," she said, crossing her arms, though her heart was pounding. "What are you doing here, Cole?" "Helping Jada," he said, nodding at the chaos around them. "She needed hands, not cash. I had some to spare." "You don't just help like this," she shot back, stepping closer. "What's your angle?" "No angle." He met her gaze, steady, unguarded. "I missed you, Lena. Missed this. Your world, your people. Figured if I couldn't fix us, I could at least do right by someone you love." She opened her mouth, then closed it, the fight draining out of her. He looked different, tired, human, the sheen of his old life stripped away. "You missed my birthday," she said finally, quieter. "I know." He stepped closer, his voice dropping. "And I hate myself for it. I turned down a deal last week, biggest one I've ever walked away from, because I don't want to be that guy anymore, the one who misses everything that matters." Her breath hitched. "You did what?" "Walked away," he said, his hand lifting like he wanted to touch her, then dropping. "I don't want a life I built alone. I want us, messy, real, all of it. If you'll have me." The room faded, the chatter a dull hum, and Lena felt tears prick her eyes. She glanced at Jada, who mouthed, "Say yes, dummy," then back at Cole. "You're crazy," she said, a shaky laugh escaping. "Crazy for you," he said, and damn if that grin didn't break her wide open. She grabbed his shirt, pulled him down, and kissed him. Soft at first, then fierce, the taste of paint and promise on his lips. The crowd whooped, Tasha yelling, "Get it, girl!" as Cole's arms wrapped around her, lifting her off her feet. When they broke apart, breathless, he pulled a small box from his pocket, a simple silver ring with a tiny emerald. Nothing flashy, just right. "Marry me," he said, not kneeling, just standing there in the middle of the chaos, paint on his hands and hope in his eyes. "Not tomorrow, not next week, whenever you're ready. Just say you'll think about it." "Yes," she whispered, tears spilling as he slid the ring on, the studio erupting in cheers. Jada hugged them both, laughing, and even Ruth, who'd slipped in late, nodded approval from the back. 2 years later, Lena and Cole were still figuring it out. They'd moved into a brownstone in Wicker Park. Not his penthouse, not her tiny apartment, but a compromise with creaky floors and a backyard for barbecues. He worked less, investing in smaller startups, showing up for Jada's shows and Ruth's Sunday dinners. Lena climbed higher at her firm, her voice louder, her edges softer with him beside her. They fought sometimes, about his privilege, her stubbornness, but they always found their way back, usually over a bottle of wine or a slow dance in the kitchen. One rainy afternoon, they stood on the corner where they'd met, the spot where her papers had scattered, and his jacket had become her shield. "This is where it started," he said, holding her hands, rain streaking his face. "Nah," she said, smiling, pulling him close. "This is where it keeps going." They danced right there, under the drizzle, laughing as cars honked and strangers stared, two worlds tangled into one messy, beautiful thing. Back home, Ruth cooked with Eleanor. Sweet potato pie and some fancy quiche, a truce of sorts, while Jada sketched them all, her art now in galleries across the city. Tasha toasted them with cheap beer. Miles sent a grudging apology gift, and life rolled on. Lena learned love wasn't about erasing differences, it was about building bridges, brick by stubborn brick. Cole learned it wasn't about winning, it was about showing up every damn day. Together, they wrote a story that wasn't perfect, but it was theirs. And that's the end, folks. Love won, but it took a hell of a fight. Subscribe for more real stories like this, and drop a comment. What's your favorite moment from Lena and Cole's wild ride? Thanks for sticking with me.
Wow.